Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them, the Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com, here today with my guest, Peri Hansen. Today's topic, the CMO as connective tissue, a top search executive's perspective on the position. Now, Peri has been with Korn Ferry for over 25 years and is currently leading the North American CMO practice. She's also the sector leader for consumer products. She runs a lot of stuff over there. She's also involved in Korn's advisory business as well as board-level searches and works on approximately 25 searches a year. Full disclosure, I've known Peri for a number of years, and she placed me in a board position several years ago. Welcome, Peri.
Thank you, Mike. A pleasure to be here. I'm a fan of the pod and really excited about the conversation ahead.
Thanks. All right, well, let's jump right into it. We'll go to the headline topic. And one of your big passions, having known you for a while, is the evolving role of the CMO. And tell us about what you are seeing in the marketplace.
First and foremost, no more exciting time to be a CMO or be working in a great CMO's orbit. There's so much change, so much opportunity, and frankly, a fair amount of uncertainty that makes CMOs more important to enterprises. And I think enabling them to have broader influence in enterprise strategy than ever. And as you know, I'm passionate about the phrase, the connective tissue. CMOs increasingly being challenged to link sales strategy, operations, finance, of course, IT, all into corporate strategy and marketing plans. And they're sitting at the heartbeat of a company. It's a great place to be today. And I think that makes our work in executive search and advisory all the more exciting.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about this in a minute, because I will say some companies are getting it, some companies maybe not getting it, but and you're probably only working with companies that get it because they're not searching for it. But when you are talking about connective tissue, let's talk about what that skill looks like and how do you find it in the marketplace? Because it's not like people are listing on their resumes, I am great at connective tissue. What does it mean? And how do you look for it when you're talking to candidates?
So there are two different ways that I think about it, two different lenses. It may be the CMO or future CMO whose career path is multidimensional. So maybe it's someone who is poised for the CMO role, but they've spent time in sales strategy. They have that multidimensional mosaic experience that our clients really like to see. That's one way to sort of see it on paper or on LinkedIn. The other way is, as we do our interviews and assessments of talent, really going deep in terms of a candidate's storytelling ability, how they influence, how they partner, how they develop strategy across the enterprise. So teaming with a go-to-market leader, teaming with a CTO or a CIO on strategy. How comfortable are they moving beyond the marketing function per se to really get business done?
So implicit in that answer, I'm just jumping the queue here, is if I spend my entire career in brand or performance marketing and I'm really good at it, it's a harder jump for me to be true connective tissue than if I have moved around in functions, especially maybe outside of marketing, or maybe companies. Is that a fair jump or not?
It may be. I would say that there are organizations where that sort of pure play career path is more common. There just isn't as much diversity of experience, but oftentimes it's really up to the individual. If you're aspiring to the C-suite and you want to get to that CMO role, you got to raise your hand and ask. If it's not sort of in the DNA of your organization to provide that diversity of experience, those broader experiences, and give you chances to partner and influence and get out of your comfort zone in brand and performance marketing, that's on you. So I would say increasingly, we are seeing the next generations of marketers really push the envelope a bit. If that's not offered, they're asking or they're thinking about how they get that experience in another company.
I would agree with that. And I think a lot of companies have trouble seeing you for more than you are if you're really good at one thing. Not all, but some. You've also talked about holistic thinking. What does that mean exactly? And then how do you interview for that in addition to connective tissue? Or am I really just on the same track here with this thing?
No, I think it's a related topic. Holistic thinking, the other way to think about it is what, we like to call enterprise thinking. So one's ability to think beyond marketing strategy, marketing operations, marketing budget, big picture. It's really thinking about, how does the board look at the business? How does the board evaluate CEO performance? How does a marketer enable all of that? So it's really about, at this level, thinking about shareholder return. It's an active marketplace. Hey, what might an activist think about marketing strategy and marketing budgets? It's big picture thinking. And one of the many reasons why I think this is such an exciting time and maybe the most impactful time in my history in executive search for CMOs.
That's awesome. We've had a bunch of shows where we've encouraged marketers to not just understand the financials, but be fluent in financials, so they don't have to talk marketing when they leave the marketing floor, and they're not trying to convince everybody that their marketing measures are the most important measures, that instead they're driving the financials. Any thoughts on that?
I think, if you're looking at a new CMO role, getting to know the CFO and team in that process and really testing their thinking about marketing spend, return on investment is a very healthy exercise. And we are, again, back to the topic of connective tissue, seeing CMOs more involved in the process, or CFOs more involved in the CMO selection process. And I think it's great for both sides. But having a strong financial partner, whether that's a VP of finance on your team as a CMO or that close linkage to a CFO, I think it's table stakes today.
We totally agree with that on the show, and are encouraging everybody to have some marketing like CFO job in their group. So speaking of this, let's talk about structure beneath the marketer. One of the things you mentioned pre-show was the entire evolution of the structure in addition to the marketplace and the connective tissue. Can you talk about what you're seeing in marketing structures and what is behind all the moves?
I'd be happy to, because it's keeping our teams on the executive search side of our business and our advisory side very busy. CEOs and boards are looking critically at the structure of marketing teams more so than ever. I mean, it's an incredibly hot topic, and it might seem boring, but I think it's fascinating. Org structure for marketing matters more than ever. The questions are we tucking an element of sales under marketing? Is direct-to-consumer and e-commerce part of the marketing platform, or is that sitting alongside of marketing? How do we think about the connectivity between marketing and IT? Are we looking for someone to complement a CIO or a CTO? Is part of that function being wrapped under the marketing team? It causes a lot of confusion, but when we see CEOs and boards make that investment up front, prior to launching a CMO search, it leads to a much more efficient process. It leads to much clearer messaging in the marketplace for a firm like ours to engage and sustain the interest of talent for a search.
Well, I think that's great, because the marketer is now thinking more about the marketplace than just the marketing. Are the measures evolving as well? Like when you do a job spec, a lot of times the job specs, we had someone on the show say, throw away the job spec and write your own, because most of them are formulaic. Are the measures evolving as well in the function, and then are they carrying into the job spec?
So I believe that our specs are more customized and focused on outcomes and expectations than ever before. And I really think you have to be able to present that information succinctly and tie it to business strategy to engage true A players. So, for example, we do deep stakeholder interviews to help us inform and develop the spec. We want to know what the board expects for a great CMO and to justify a budget, or if they're looking at increasing the budget. So we try, in addition to describing all of the skills and experiences and the leadership attributes, incumbent upon our team to really crystallize the top, say, 4 to 5 outcomes that a CMO will make if they are doing their job and meeting or exceeding performance measures in the first 12 to 18 months.
Got it. Any of those ones that show up a lot more than they used to?
Boy, a lot of discussion around team, either reevaluating the marketing team structure, upskilling, being able to recruit to drive new forms of marketing strategy, whether that's utilizing AI or developing a direct-to-consumer channel. Change management, a very big focus.
So let's talk about, you mentioned at least 3 really interesting words there: upscaling, talent development, and change management. How do you judge if someone is good at that? And then I'm going to throw in vendor management, because you're not going to just run out and hire someone that can do AI for the whole company. Sure. How do you, as a super search person, go evaluate those 4 things?
So certainly the in-person interview is the baseline, right? And then from there, you build upon it. We can, thanks to all sorts of tools and technology, sort of map where a CMO's team has migrated and really understand, is this an individual who has developed great talent that's gone on to populate and impact positively other organizations? So that's sort of some of the soft behind the scenes work that we can do. We also, of course,
wait, this is like a coaching tree, right? Like you have basically the coaching tree of, this person's a great coach and a ton of their people went on to be CMOs, and this person, none of their people have gone on to be. That is like just a fact-based thing.
It is. And great CMOs are, they want to see their teams flourish and go on. And that's part of the mandate, right? Enabling your individuals to acquire the skills and experiences and give them the leadership training and development to go on to do great things and to become a CMO themselves. And when you see that track record with a great CMO talent, it's illuminating. And then from there, of course, that translates to, at the appropriate time, the referencing. We go deep and do 360 references, and we want to talk to the individuals who've reported in, who can talk about how someone leads and develops and how that individual may, or frankly may have not, enabled them to flourish and move forward in career.
And so you use the candidates' references, but you're just tapping your vast network and getting as much information as possible too, right?
Sure. And we also reflect on past work. We're in the market, so we're having conversations every day with talent. And so, you remember that bright up-and-comer, that high potential that you interviewed 6 months ago, who came of age under the CMO that you're now talking to. And you can think about those stories and begin to map those experiences. So our work is rich. It's ever evolving, and it's all about sort of understanding all of the touch points in one's career.
Thank you. Let's talk about, and make sure everyone understands what you mean when you say upscaling and what that looks like in a skill set.
Sure. So the reality is the world of marketing is changing faster than ever. That means that CMOs and teams need to be looking around corners, ahead of thinking when it comes to acquiring technology and tools and making sure that their teams remain relevant. So you can't change out a marketing team every 2 years. The only alternative is to go deep in terms of development. And again, as I mentioned at the outset, if you're not, your team's going to be looking for organizations and teams where they can get those skills and experiences and continue to grow. So we are seeing increasingly a CMO's budget having a line item for training and development, making sure that, and I think it plays right into your question around vendor management, thinking about continuous improvement, innovation, and learning on the team, as opposed to saying, oh, wow, we're 18 months into our strategy and these aren't the right folks. We've now got to recruit. it's not a reality for CMOs who are really looking to create impact and impact change.
We've had a couple of people on the show, including Bob Liodice from the ANA, who said one of the hardest parts about, and Seth Matland, who basically said one of the hardest parts about being a CMO now is there's so many tools that have come at you so fast, you can't be native at all of them, much less even stack them all together. And a lot of these are going to have to use vendor management. How do you suggest marketers out there be thinking about AI, TikTok, big data, all this other stuff, particularly if they're not native to all of this? And no one's really native to AI. So
I think it goes right back to the strength of a relationship with a vendor. Vendors are oftentimes thought of unfairly as suppliers, but it's when you really can establish that deep connection and understand that the relationship has to run two ways. It's not just about a service and a fee. It's about education. It's about trust. It's about finding vendors who really understand strategy and who are also going to be willing to flex and meet your team's needs. The best vendors are those who can really help with the educational process and development process, and who are there for you for the formal needs as well as all of the informal. That late night question, that high potential who needs, a half an hour's extra training to get them off and running on something that's challenging. So, and also sometimes it means you have to have the courage to say, it's been a great relationship, but it's not the relationship that I need for the future. I need to think about a change.
Got it. And what you basically said there, I'm just paraphrasing, is a really good company to vendor manage here, they'd be a partner, not a transaction.
Exactly. Very well said. Thank you.
Got it. So let's shift to the job market overall. You get to see the whole thing. We hear from a lot of listeners that the job market is maybe a little softer, a little slow. What do you see out there?
So I will tell you specifically when it comes to marketing, our team is very busy and busy on a global basis. Now, I would say activity, may vary according to industry or market a bit, but overall, we've not seen a slowdown. And I think it's in part, Mike, due to the fact that, during the pandemic, many companies just, positioned themselves for stability. They just wanted to see it through. And they came out and either consumer demand dipped or they realized, wow, we really weren't thinking about future investment. So it's just been this really interesting period of change. Oftentimes a CEO and or board looking for a different type of marketeer. We've even seen some companies say, we're going to move from our traditional B2B focus and edge a little bit closer to the end user consumer. So, hey, B2B was where we were 4 or 5 years ago. We've got to be thinking about a B2C strategy or an omni-channel strategy, something new and different. And that's frankly driving much of the work.
Yeah, and a lot of the B2B companies got reevaluated in a way they didn't really like. And so there's probably, and then I think there was a massive cutbacks for a lot of them. And then there's like, oh my gosh, now we got to grow again. So there's probably a lot of nice thinking there. As part of this, though, we're also hearing from a lot of candidates that say, God, the searches are taking a lot longer. And maybe I have to do a case or 16 presentations or do all this other stuff. Is that true? And is it harder to run the gauntlet now? Tell us what you're seeing.
Sure. So in terms of overall speed, we're actually seeing CMO searches move faster. So, which, by the way, is great and quite different from where we were, say, 3 to 5 years ago. The reason being this, just a general sense of urgency. I think many boards and CEOs are just much better prepared to understand upon launch what they need. So the 6-month process, we're not seeing as much of that. I mean, there are some of those searches and they're that long for a variety of reasons. And it may be process, it may be availability, Rome may not be burning, there may be an incumbent who's retiring and it's more of a slower roll. But overall, if there's a vacancy, there's a sense of urgency and we are moving fast and our clients have been better prepared to be agile and move faster than ever. And we love that. Now, the process itself, your question around case studies, assessments, Absolutely. And we're big proponents of it. Our firm has its own proprietary assessment process, but there are some clients who use their own, and we support that. It goes back to the old adage, you hire for skills, you fire for fit. And
Yeah.
to the extent that an assessment tool or a case study can help a CEO and or board better understand the candidate before they've hired and been under their roof for 6 months, that's really what many of those tools do. And we support that.
Got it. You've talked a lot about how boards and CEOs and C-suites in general are getting more attuned to marketing, and it's very exciting for marketing. And I know you feel strongly about marketing, but when you look at how many marketers are on boards, it's not very many. What's going on there? And are boards starting to think about this differently, or is this just an inherent thing about marketing?
We've seen an uptick in interest from boards over the last 3 to 5 years, more boards saying not only is marketing a strategic pillar, but outside perspective and marketing thought leadership on the board matters more than ever. And the reasons really being, again, it goes back to our conversation around the rapid pace of change.
Yes.
And so bringing in a marketeer or a former marketeer, maybe it's a CEO or a president, but they have a strong foundation in marketing. That was their path forward. That experience is valuable. And as it relates to strategy, as it relates to having an advisor to the marketing team, maybe it's a new CMO, maybe it's an organization that's going through some shift or change, but we're definitely seeing more interest. What used to be this sort of standalone corporate function with a lot of mystery around brand and performance marketing is now much more core to strategy. And those leaders can help unpack some of the mystery and some of the strategic opportunity associated with the function.
And also probably super helpful for the thing we talked about, vendor management and other perspective, things in the MarTech stack and other things where if you're doing that for the first time, it's helpful to have a guide who's been there.
Sure.
So if I'm a marketer starting out, or I'm at the director level and I want to be a CMO or maybe even a CEO, give our listeners advice on what they should be doing and thinking about to meet all the skill sets we talked about early in this interview.
2 themes emerged for me. First and foremost, pick a company where you are absolutely passionate about the product or service. Particularly starting out in career, you want to have that immersive experience. You want to love what you do. And marketers need that, I think, to really fuel themselves and to be fully engaged in the nature of the work. I think that's so important. Secondly, and hopefully it's an and not an or.
Yeah.
Go to work with and for great people. Find people who have a track record of developing talent. To our earlier conversation about fueling people's career paths going forward. I think there are all sorts of ways to discover that in the interviews and also doing secondary research. Find somebody who's got the time to be a mentor and who will be able to invest in you. I think passion for work, great leadership, that's magic for the
So
path.
if I'm a candidate and I'm going through the interview process and I want to decide, is Peri really a good leader? And I've done kind of my homework. And I think maybe, yes, what questions should I ask as a candidate to figure out if Peri is really going to be the right leader for me? Do you have any tips for that?
I would ask about, case studies and examples. Hey, tell me about the individuals you've developed who've gone on to do different things, or are there a couple of individuals in the company that I can speak to who've worked with you so I can understand your leadership style, how you think about talent development, what you like, what you don't like, and how you lead and engage with the team. I think those are all fair questions. The answer could be no, but I think you're wise to ask. And if the answer is no, maybe you pause and think about that, right?
Got it. And then how do I judge my career if I'm at that director or senior manager level? Things are going slow. I think I have a good leader, but I'm not sure I'm developing enough. What would you advise people to think about in terms of when is it right for me to entertain an outside offer and when should I stick?
So marketers are perhaps known for making more career transitions for that future opportunity for, what's bright and shiny around the next corner. And that's fair in terms of career management, but I'm a big advocate for regular communication with your leader. So that's whether it's a monthly lunch or just an in-office touch base. Number one, you'll better understand your performance. Why wait till the end of the year? But it's also the platform for you to explore your interests, state your intentions about your own career development and acceleration of career. Looking out's great. And all of us have, explored external opportunities. It's perfectly healthy, but I'd say make sure that your diet at work includes steady conversation about your career ambitions and development. And you owe it to yourself. You also owe it to your boss. It's a two-way street.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for that. So we're running towards the close of the show, and there's a two-part finish question all the time.
Okay.
You can pick both or one, but you must pick at least one.
Okay.
Funniest story you can tell on the air, and a piece of practical advice we haven't discussed that you think our listeners should know.
Okay, well, I'm going to save the funny stories, and there are many, for my book someday. I promise I'm going to put, and we'll change the name.
One here. You can tease one here if you want. We're very flexible.
Yeah, I'm going to save it. So let's go with a tip or some advice. How's that?
Okay, ready.
So my advice is for a candidate for a CMO or an analogous role. This might seem obvious, but do your homework. Get steeped in the product or the experience, eat at the restaurant, stay in the hotel, fly the airline, drive the car. You might be surprised.
I want to be surprised. I want you to tell me, without mentioning a thing, a funny story about a candidate that did showed up for an interview wearing the wrong clothes of the competitor or something.
So I do a lot of work in the restaurant industry. I love that work. I can tell you that candidates sometimes don't go to the restaurant or they get confused. So, for example, a candidate who mentioned their favorite dish to a CEO, that restaurant concept doesn't make that dish. Not a good move. I mean, end of story, right? So silly example, but the candidates who get the roles are the ones who can go deep and then reflect that experience back and link it to strategy and growth and all of the great things that they can do. So no substitute for going deep in the experience.
Got it. Any more practical advice? That was such a good piece. We'll take a second if you have it.
Okay, so this kind of leans toward the funny, but we do our very best in executive search to create a great candidate experience and to really manage that experience right down to travel. So don't doubt that you're on the flight you're supposed to be because we're trying to avoid something awkward. So I will tell you a story. This is years ago, but two very well-qualified candidates who flew to Europe to meet the board for their final interview and final presentation. We managed their itinerary, very careful, different hotels, different airlines, different flights. Well, lo and behold, one of them changed their flight, ended up right across the aisle from the other person. And trust me, the two of them are so good at what they do. They knew exactly why they were on that same flight. Can you imagine being 4 feet away from your competitor, the last two?
I so want a transcript of that conversation.
Oh my God. I mean, did they chat it up or did they not? That's the question, right? But it happened.
There was no way you couldn't chat if you were flying to Europe.
I
mean, what are you going for? Oh, it's like,
I don't think any words needed to be exchanged in that.
No, just got a little carry bag, not staying long. All right. That's good. All right, Peri. Well, thank you. And thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential. If you are enjoying our show, please like, share, and subscribe. Look for all of our shows on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and the I Hear Everything Network, which include Marketing, The Battle Between Believers and Non-Believers, Parts 1, 2, and 3. Is the CMO position the hardest job in business? Tales from the Marketing Crypt, and a marketer turned technology exec talks about big data, mainframes, and AI. Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential.